Chapter 10. Vacation. Glorious Estolia. A hidden paradise where dreams come true, where the soul rejoices. Where love at first sight is normal, and family relationships are the foundation of faith. Juliana Maria Zakarian, Ensayo 84. Lilane paid the taxi driver and then looked at the small building. The main terminal at the airport was more than a mile away. She was directed to come to the smaller auxiliary building. She was not sure exactly what to do from this point on. When a vivacious woman around her own age came up to her smiling, she smiled back shyly.
"You must be Taryn. I am Cassiopeia Zakarian. It would please me if you would call me Cassie. My family calls me that. The other is quite a mouthful anyway. My family is quite fond of long, complicated names. Mother said she saw the constellation from the deck of the Promise of Deity when she first sailed to Estolia, and vowed to herself that she would name her daughter Cassiopeia."
While she was speaking, a couple of somber men in suits came and picked up Lilane's luggage. "I actually prefer to be called Lilane." Cassie hooked her arm with Lilane's and steered her towards the main building.
"I can already tell that we shall be great friends,"
she burbled on, happily guiding Lilane through the building and out another door that led to the tarmac. A small private jet stood near the building, with a set of mobile stairs leading up to the open door. Cassie blithely led Lilane up the stairs and into the airplane.
"I am sorry to hustle you up like this, but when it is time to return to Estolia, I am always most anxious. The sooner we are boarded, the sooner we are on our way. You will love my country."
Over the course of the flight, Lilane did more listening than speaking. She learned a lot about the country of Estolia. Cassie had a bubbly personality and the ability to talk endlessly. She learned that the island nation had been in existence longer than any other.
"You will not find that information in encyclopedias,"
Cassie confided.
"We like our privacy much too much to be a curiosity. We have been able to remain shielded from scrutiny because of our lack of resources. No gold or diamonds or oil. No major exports. Self-sufficient and unimportant. We like it that way."
Even atlases don't seem to have much information on Estolia, Lilane pointed out. Cassie giggled, explaining.
"They need to have permission for more than the most basic information, and my father refuses to give it."
"Your father? Dr. Lestalt told me that your father was a man of some import in your country."
"Of course, you could not know, but yes, he is one of the most important men in the country. My uncle has 3 titles. He is first consul to the king, last resort, and the keeper of the soul of Estolia."
"What does all that mean?" Lilane asked.
"Being keeper means,"
Cassie said slowly, as if gathering her thoughts,
"that he is the leader of the Estolian religion. He receives inspiration from deity, gives special blessings, and oversees the religious and historical education of the young men of Estolia. It is considered the most powerful position in Estolia, even more powerful than the king."
"Is every inhabitant of your nation also a member of the religion?" Lilane was fascinated by the intricacies of the tiny nation.
"Yes, of course,"
Cassie said, as if there was never any doubt.
"My uncle says that those who do not feel the faith in their heart and soul would not feel comfortable living in Estolia. They leave, and are much happier."
"What does last resort mean?"
"If the heir to the throne, the heir apparent, cannot fulfill his obligations, it is the duty of the last resort to be the one to step in and do so. It is a very important role. My brother Isaiah will be able to explain to you more of this, as it has to do with the obligations imposed by our faith, specifically regarding the royal succession."
"And what was the third thing you said about your uncle?"
"He is the first consul. This means he is the first man the king goes to when he needs advice. If something terrible were to happen to the king, the first consul would take over until the heir apparent was ready to be king."
Later in the flight, Lilane asked, "Why do you live in the States?" Cassie flushed, looking momentarily unhappy.
There is no man in my country who has touched my heart. Not all women who are born there are true daughters of Estolia, with but one soul worthy of their keeping. Those who cannot find a soulmate on the island tend to leave Estolia and search in the greater world. Despite the great blessing my uncle gave me 7 days after I was born, which he repeated when I turned 18, that I was indeed a true daughter of Estolia, I fear that the man whose soul I could keep does not exist or will, like my family's good friend Eduardo Lestalt, reject his Kaylee.
Lillian processed all that Cassie told her. She could tell that there were some chasms in her grasp of the intricacies of the Estolian perspective. I don't understand this keeping of the soul stuff. Cassie brightened, saying,
A man's soul is unhappy until it finds its true home, in the keeping of his Kaylee. This is the woman who, in your world, would be called wife. But in our world, it means much, much more. When he meets the woman who is destined to be his, he will know it and must act on it. If he hands his soul into her keeping, he must choose to marry her. No man can live without his soul. If he spurns the woman, his Kaylee, he will die.
The explanation did not exactly clear everything up. Dr. Lestalt mentioned something about that, but I thought it was a long time ago that he loved and lost. A sad expression settled on Cassie's face. She explained.
In his case, he met the woman who should have been his Kaylee, but he never gave his soul into her keeping. The soul knows its home, and having found it, it will never settle any other place. So, he lives without the love that he spurned.
What happened to her?
She was thrown from her horse and died. My aunt. Eduardo has always been a great friend of the family. His loss was even more extreme than our own. I do not remember my aunt, as she died before I was born. But Eduardo has been like an uncle to the three of us, my brothers and I, that is. Likely he would have seen the truth and come to entrust her with his soul. But he was denied that chance.
It sounds like you have an amazing country and an even more amazing set of beliefs. Lillian wondered if it would be possible to properly understand a faith without in some way living it. The intercom in the airplane suddenly came to life, and Lillian listened to the foreign words with curiosity. This was the first time she heard the actual language of Estolia. She found it exotic, fluid, and evocative. When the announcement ended, Cassie unbuckled her seatbelt and jumped to her feet.
The captain says there is just the right amount of time for the two of us to dress for our arrival.
Dress for our arrival? She had handed over her suitcases when she got to the airplane. I don't have a change of clothing available in my carry-on bag. Cassie grinned at her.
Eduardo knew, as a man with great perception, that you would feel awkward if you were not properly dressed during this visit. He shared this concern with me, and I have remedied the situation. We are exactly the same size, so you will be able to use some of my own items of apparel. I will have a special gown commissioned for the celebration, of course, and they will make one for you at the same time. It will be extraordinarily exciting.
Cassie was an irresistible force. It would do no good to argue. She followed Cassie to a room at the tail of the airplane with 2 gowns hanging from hooks. Cassie crossed over to the green gown and said,
This color is not flattering on me. It would be absolutely splendid with your red hair.
40 minutes later, Lillian was staring at herself in a full-length mirror in amazement. The dress was off the shoulder, showing more cleavage than she normally exposed, and was the most extravagant thing she had ever owned or worn. She looked over at Cassie, whose darker beauty was absolutely stunning in the purple and green gown. The flight crew were all wearing outfits that were purple and green. Are these colors special in some way?
Our flag is mostly purple and green. They are the state colors.
Lillian followed Cassie to their seats, and about 5 minutes later the jet began its final approach. Cassie reached across the aisle and took Lelane's hand, smiling happily at her new friend as if they had been friends for years instead of only the duration of one long transatlantic flight.